Have you ever wondered what makes bodies tick? Are you creating the sexual reality you desire and require? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? What if your fantasies are not as strange as you thought they were? What if you could learn to be kinder to your body and kinder to others' bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Have you lost your mojo and wondered where to find it? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here is the host of The Pleasure Zone, Body Whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight my guest is Melanie Clampett. She was actually like my first or second guest about a year ago, so we're celebrating just over a year of being on the radio, and Melanie is back with our anniversary show. So the very first show that I had with her was Receiving More in Sex and Life, and today we are talking about something completely controversial, and I was so happy. A request from her last week to come on the show, and her awareness of, hey, this is really controversial. Milica's the person to talk to about it. I loved that, Melanie. That was great. So our topic for tonight is celebration of life, the unspoken gifts of abortion and miscarriage. And so I realized that this is not your typical pleasure zone, how to get more out of your sex life and all that stuff. What it really is a show about awareness, about what we choose and what we're choosing, and all beings, whether they've chosen to be in embodiment now or if they even just showed up temporarily. It's all really like a choice thing. So I wanted to welcome Melanie. For those of you who haven't met her or heard her speak before, Melanie is a certified facilitator for Access Consciousness. A lot of certified facilitators have these beautiful letters after their name, CFMW, Certified Fucking Miracle Worker. So she is one of those. And also she does a lot of stuff like Right Voice for Youth, for anybody who's looking to check out like what she does and all the things that she's creating on the planet. Please contact her. So Melanie, can you give them the how to find you information?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the beautiful invitation. And if you all would like to learn more about me, it's actually my first and last name. You can go to melanieclampett.com.
Awesome. Thank you,
and
Melanie.
I'm sure it's written out somewhere. Yeah, it's a perfect way to get to know me. And it's, got my phone number and the email you can contact me with. And you can, also send a contact to the website.
That's
I would
awesome.
absolutely, I would absolutely love to hear from anyone. Yeah.
I know. I love getting messages after these shows from people about what has changed their life and how these shows have facilitated change for them. So if you don't contact me personally about this show, and if you would prefer to contact Melanie, feel free to do so. I just have one more comment about Melanie, is that every time my lover sees Melanie on Facebook, he's like, there's Melanie. He's got a thing for you, and it's so sweet. It's so funny. He's like, it's Melanie. I'm like, I know. Do you want to look at her a little longer before we get it on? Because that's great. She turns you on. So,
how does it get better than that?
Isn't that cool? So, yeah, I think it's really sweet. He's so excited that you're on my show tonight. He's like, it's Melanie. I'm like, I know. So,
well,
really,
hello
really
out
sweet.
there.
So, how many other people have that that they haven't even mentioned yet?
I wonder. I'm like, that's what people are doing on Facebook.
Right?
And that's actually another, great way to get in connection with me. Is through Facebook. Yeah. And Melissa, I love that you're so open to share it. And the amount of, allowance you have, for him and all of that, it's so different. That's wonderful.
It's fun. Well, it's sweet. It's really sweet. And, if he ever meets you one day, he'll probably be like starstruck or something. It'll be great. You're like, oh my God, she's for real. Like, yeah, she's for real.
No, I actually, I don't exist in physical form.
That would be hilarious. You're just a boy.
There are some women sees me, they just, hear me on different radio shows and see me on Facebook and okay. I'm actually computer generated. Oh my goodness. So, I was just so grateful, and you received my message, going, hey, I'd really like to talk about this subject. Would you be interested? It's a little controversial. Not a lot of people are talking about it. That's one of the reasons I would really like to talk about it. And it was just, I'm so grateful because it was just an instant yes in your universe. So thank you so much.
I'm so aware of how this conversation has been kind of hiding in people's minds. Basically, they've tucked it in the back of the closets to try and never discuss it. And so many families in even in the area that I live in that have either had abortions in them that nobody's talking about, miscarriages nobody's talking about, as if this is like the secret thing that everybody is required to hide. And so many of them, they show up at office and, my mom has one of her questionnaires for people when they come to the office is how many pregnancies have you had? And then how many children have you had? And a lot of it, we'll go to there, and a lot of stuff that people don't want to reveal. Sometimes they'll not even mention it. They won't even acknowledge the question exists. So they don't actually want it in writing, and they'll rather just have us discuss it sometime later in the future, possibly, maybe not. So there's a lot of secrecy still around it.
Yeah, there really is. Not a lot of people, it makes sense. So often the only conversation, about abortion is this the right choice or is this the wrong choice? Which it's more of a political conversation and not really a personal conversation.
Right now in Canada, one of our politicians that's going up to become a prime minister is being basically harassed with a whole bunch of stuff regarding abortion. Like there are flyers going around on people's doors in major cities in Canada to boycott Justin Trudeau, who's actually, I'm not getting political here, but he's entitled to his point of view. And I actually looked up pictures when you asked for this. I looked up pictures because I thought maybe somebody would have had some grace in some of the photos that they've taken with abortion and with miscarriage. And what I found was that so many of the photos were actually duplicated. So the abortion photos and the miscarriage photos were actually the same photos. If you Google them, you'll see that yourself. And I was like, well, that's interesting. How that either that those photos are being advertised or something. They're putting out the incorrect information. And really, there's such a difference for people in terms of often the reaction in the body, right? So, I know I've had friends who have had abortions. I grew up with a girl who, when we were growing up in high school, I think she had 5 abortions during high school. She was on an abortion rampage for a while, and she managed to kind of get through just stonewalling herself. Just every time she would just become more of a wall and more of a wall and more of a wall. I actually still know her to this day, so I'm not going to name her on here. But I do know her to this day, and I randomly see postings of her on Facebook. And it's interesting because she has had children since then. And some of the things that her children are manifesting is not the word, but some of the things that are showing up in her children's body is fascinating because she likes talking about their health issues. I thought, wow, what if we actually can have those beings come back to us that were either aborted. So what if those kids that she did abort did come back to her again and again and again, and then finally they came through, or didn't? Like, it's just a choice to choose that too. And for me, I know that my body had several pregnancies in my 20s, and I was never in a place where I could receive that baby. And I would just go into every chant, prayer, sweat house I could possibly go to and talk to the baby and go, please come back some other time. I just can't have you right now. Please come back some other time. I was having these conversations with the being. And when my daughter was born, it was kind of I guess he came back. Cool. How's good than that?
Yeah, and it's amazing. You're not the only person that I've spoken to who've actually had a really similar experience. And just the concept, just by itself is so different. The idea, that there's a being, and that there's also a physically actualized, piece, that's the body, that's the embryo.
Mm-hmm.
Just in that by itself, if someone coming new to this conversation, that is, I think, because we go all of it together, and
mm-hmm.
it isn't the acknowledgement of there's a being that actually doesn't die, because, the being doesn't. The being never dies. The genetic material that, comes together to create a body is not the same as the being. So with a miscarriage, with, an abortion, it isn't that we're killing something that's gonna die forever. We're actually just saying, you know what? The physical actualization of you isn't gonna work in my life right now, and maybe not ever.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It may work now, it may not work at another time. But when we lump it all together and we're going, wow, you're taking this life that only has one chance, and you're ending it. You're taking that choice away. It's actually, I have a very different point of view in it. It sounds like you also have a very different point of view.
Absolutely.
What if, the being doesn't actually come into the body? The point of view that I have is, it can kind of pop in and out, but until the baby is actually, born, the being is not completely with the body. It has the freedom, to go in and out. And that
freedom
we really can, exactly, we can, like you were saying, have those conversations. We can actually have a conversation with that being. And just because that being said, I'm going to come into your life and you're going to have me, it does not necessarily mean that we are no longer in choice.
Yeah, we're always in choice. I think that's such a key point, is that we're always in choice. You can, even if that baby's showing up and you're kind of going, well, I have to because I got pregnant. Well, what if that's not true, right? That's what you're saying, Melanie, is as the person who has that, little embryo growing in them, you can still go, wait a minute, is this working for me? What will my life be like 5 years if I choose this? 10 years, 15 years, 500 years? What will the planet be like if I choose this? If you are aware that you are not in a place, if you're not ready, if you're not willing to choose this, if you're not willing to be present with the baby and the embryo and the being, if you're not willing to be present with it, is it a greater kindness to have that baby because it's a moral thing, or is it a greater kindness for you to choose what works for you and choose more consciously when you are going to have a child? Even when my daughter did show up in my life, it was more unconscious too, so I was still quite frustrated, though. I was like, hey, you came back, but I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I still am shocked that I'm a mom. Every day, I'm still holy crap, I'm a mom.
Yes. Well, and I'm glad you brought up that other piece. I still wasn't sure, and I went ahead and did, choose to have a child. And the one thing I would like people to know that are listening right now is that this isn't a conversation that abortion is the right choice. And that having an abortion is the right choice or not having an abortion is the right choice. That isn't what this conversation is. It's really just about choice. And, the reason that, having an abortion or having a miscarriage, is more of the topic, is because that's where all the judgment is.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. Somehow miscarriage is okay in a way. It's like, oh, you feel bad for the person because they lost a baby. But somehow abortion is totally frowned on.
Yeah, well, many people believe when you have a miscarriage that, you're sort of powerless to do it, that you're not actually, in choice. But, what's interesting, the different people that I've actually spoken to, who have had miscarriages, when I ask them to not look at it from a cognitive space, but, to ask a question and just go, hey, based on your awareness, based on what's actually light, like, did you actually choose this? Was this a choice between you, your body, and that other being? And they're like, yes.
Yes.
Actually, like, I actually did choose this. And I think it's less controversial, and there's less upset and controversy around miscarriage, because most people believe it isn't a choice. But there's still a lot of secrecy, right? Because, many of, very similar energies that come up with people who, after having an abortion and also having a miscarriage, there'll be, feelings of regret, or there'll be, feelings of shame for the choices that we've made. And,
sadness.
One of the points, yeah, exactly, sadness, like all of it. And, one of the things that I really wanted to bring up, on the show, there are a number of people that I've talked to, and it seems to come up for all of those people. And with almost every single, with actually every single person, when I've asked them the question, like, are those actually your thoughts and actually your feelings, or are you aware of the amount of judgments and the amount of, shame and blame and regret that's actually projected onto people who either choose to have an abortion or who have a miscarriage?
Yeah, that is one of the greatest questions. The who does it belong to question for that is so. I did actually consider that when we were, talking about this call, and I was kind of playing with ideas around that, around the guilt and the shame, and like really like who did we buy it from, and how much of it is like religious indoctrination or cultural, or in some cultures it's like, well, and all of it, and like, oh, well, we do this in our family. We just have miscarriages because that's how we roll. Like, there's also this like family thing. Like, that's what's normal. We have 6 miscarriages every 3 children born. Like my grandmother had like 4 children. 10 children altogether. 4 died either just in childbirth or just like they were either miscarriages or just after. But everybody in the family always says she had 10 kids and 4 died. But they never say if it was like just before, just after. Like, it's always that they were, the kids died. Like, there was never to be a discussion of how that happened. So it's fascinating too that people won't even acknowledge it.
It's true. It's true. There's a lack of acknowledgement, but just, death in general in art, in, most cultures and in those societies in the world, death is actually not something people want to talk about. Death is really seen as a wrongness. So even if we, started right there, what if not having a body anymore, wasn't actually wrong? What if we really, are these infinite beings, and then we take on a body for, a certain amount of time, sometimes a very short period of time, and, sometimes, 100+ years. But, what if it isn't, about how many years we've been living? What if it's, actually about the presence that we have with the life that we choose? Right? So
however long that may be.
Exactly, and it's just such a huge topic. Even going into death, I mean, that's its own, show altogether.
Yeah.
But if we didn't, have these points of view that death was wrong, and you get one chance to, to get it right, and if you, mess up this one chance, like, that's it. I'm not, I don't have that point of view, so there's not really anything else that comes after it. Like, oh, okay, like, that's it. There's really not, there's nothing that comes after it. It's never made sense. But I wonder, people, began to ask themselves, like, cool, well, what if it is possible? What if I am an infinite being? What if everyone is an infinite being? And as an infinite being, you don't actually, ever die. You have different bodies, you have different experiences. And with that point of view, it opens up, so many different possibilities. So, when we, named this radio show, it's a celebration of living. It's a celebration of life. And I can, perceive a question out there like, well, what is all this talk about, death and beings and bodies? Like, what does this actually have to do with life and with living?
So much.
So, yeah, it's like, what if it's inseparable? First of all, I guess that's kind of a different conversation. But looking from this point of view, what if we were able to ask ourselves the question, so say you're pregnant and you're not sure what you would like to choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if one of the questions that you can ask is, what is right about this that I'm not getting? Like, what is right about this situation?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are choosing to, to continue to be pregnant, or to create a change, either through asking your body to have a miscarriage, or your body going ahead and doing it, or going ahead and moving forward with an abortion, either one. What if you don't actually have to disconnect from the life? What if you don't have to disconnect from the living? And I know for myself, so I was pregnant, and when I asked all of these questions, and when I really, really looked at, okay, like, I have a choice to make here, and I have an awareness of the future that I would like to create. I have an awareness of the changes that I can, be creating here on the planet. So what is actually going to create this? What can I be or do? What is it that I can choose that's going to create this future and these possibilities that I know are possible? So I didn't go into the rightness or the wrongness of the choice. It was really about, what is this choice going to create? What would it create for me? And what would it create for this life? For this being is like, hey, I like you. Like, how about you grow my body? And then you take care of me, and then I'll go and do the stuff I want to do in the world. And I was like, wow. Okay, and I was willing to look at all of it. And what was amazing is, I became aware of all of the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions and the judgments that people have in the world. And I realized, wow, people don't actually have these tools of asking questions. They don't actually know that they can perceive what the choice is going to create. They don't even actually know that they have a choice. Right?
What I like about that is,
wow.
Yeah, you got the conversation of the relationship between you and the being, and it's like the being is like, yeah, I choose you. But just like any relationship, if somebody goes up to you and goes, hey, I really want to be with you, and you're like, okay, well, hi, I don't know if I want to be with you.
Yeah, can we have coffee and have a conversation
first? I'd like to, talk about where this is going, maybe. So when we come back from break, can we talk a little bit more about how that choice, and that it is a relationship, and whether, you can choose to maintain that too, whether that body is still choosing to be embodied and choosing you to be embodied, or whether it's choosing to not be embodied. There's so much information in some of these beings that are choosing you. What if they are choosing to actually go through the experience of abortion. We were just talking about that. I was just talking about that with Lover before I got on the show, and he was saying, well, what if these beings actually choose the mother that's choosing to have abortion? I'm like, yeah, what if that is it? So when we come back from break,
take a look
yeah,
at the
can we talk a little bit more of that? Yeah. Thank you.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. Would you be willing to explore what has already been introduced as sexual practices on this planet? What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution? Taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation. By tuning into the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on a2zen.fm.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
What does optimal cell health mean, and how can you create it? Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy by Swiss Bionics can improve your well-being in every area of your life. The PEMF mat stimulates cells to move and create space between cells for optimal cell function. How does it get better than that? Use 2 to 3 times per day for 8 minutes will improve circulation and immune function. Cell metabolism and repair begins, and mobility also will increase. Do you desire better health? If you're interested or would like a session, call 613-473-3805 or in Toronto. Call or text 416-253-1617. Monthly rentals start at only $300 per month. Is now the time to choose optimal cell health?
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call us in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255-TALK or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at a2zen.fm. You can also make the choice to ask for comment by email by sending to Milica at milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and today my guest is Melanie Clampett, and we're actually talking about celebration of life, which is a little different than some of you may be thinking. We're actually talking about miscarriage and abortion from a totally different point of view. We have somebody, Melanie, in the chat room who's saying, and we can refer to them as GLAM, that they say, my body hasn't been the same since my abortion 10 years ago. How can we facilitate our bodies letting go of that as well?
Absolutely. That's a really fantastic question. You know, what I would ask, so, you know, right before we went to the break, we were talking about the possibility of the gift, right? The gift that could be possible in a situation like this. So, you know, what I would ask you, you know, whoever you are that wrote in, the amazing, beautiful, courageous being. And, you know, is there something that being tried to gift to you and gift to your body that you had no idea was actually there and available for you. And just notice, if that gives you a sense of lightness, or if that, you notice, anything in your body, even something that, even becomes more intense. And if you get a sense that it might be yes, are you willing to receive the gifts that that being in that little body that was inside of you had to gift you? Is it something that would transform your life? Is it something that you'd actually been asking for, even though you may not have known or consciously been asking? Is there a part of your body that it was like, gosh, if I come in, even just for this short period of time, I can gift your body this healing and this transformation? And just notice, if you get a sense that it's a yes, would you allow yourself to receive what was gifted? I mean, it doesn't matter how much time has passed. And just notice, is anything different? And I would also ask, any of the projections and expectations and the judgments that you are aware of from anyone else, even if no one else knew, you were aware of the judgments and projections and everything that was out there. So any of it that you might still be holding on is locked into your body, and anything you aligned and agreed with, and anything you resisted or reacted to, in order to choose what worked for you, will you let all of that go now and let it just drain and dissipate out of your body?
That's awesome, Melanie. Glam is actually saying thank you, that she did get a yes for all of that there was something to be gifted, and she felt that was really brilliant.
Awesome. So yeah, check back in with us, in a moment, and just, let us know if that changes and if it's any different.
What I noticed.
Thank you so much for your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, what I noticed in my life is anytime that the question of pregnancy would come up, and I could have been using what I called triple protection Aquafresh. I was like using condoms and the pill and spermicide. Like one particular person, I used everything because I so did not want that person's baby, which was hilarious that I would even still choose to have sex with them. But there was like nothing in my universe that would ever want to have a baby with that person. And I stayed with him for 3 years. So I'm adorable. And anytime it would come up that I thought I was pregnant, he would be thrilled and I would be mortified. And I was like, wow, after 3 years of that, like question and torture that was going on, like that I was choosing to torture myself with this, I was like, I got to get out of here. And so it took me a while. I'm a bit slow, but I finally chose to get out. And so many of those things that were like, oh my God, am I pregnant, contributed to me getting like, this is really not the person I'm choosing to be with. I'm not even choosing to be present with this person enough to even like acknowledge anything beyond going into some beyond going, oh my God, I don't want to have this person's baby. And I would just be stuck in this place.
Well, and that was the other piece, so, for me, like two of the most valuable things, for me in my life is one, it's awareness. And the second is creating a different world, creating a more conscious world. So consciousness and awareness are the two most valuable things for me. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed in my own experience was, like you're talking about right now, the amount of awareness that I was actually able to get, I am just like so grateful, so incredibly grateful to be able to receive those awarenesses. And they are not awarenesses that I don't think I actually could have gotten them any other way, but through the gift of this incredible being and the generosity of spirit that I had to go, hey, I know you're not actually choosing this, but it's time for you to step up in your life. So I'm going to come in whether you like it or not, and you're going to have to choose. You're going to have to choose
beautiful?
The future, the future that you know is possible, and, and these other array of choices. And I went, wow, gosh, I have not been willing to really choose and really commit. And this being was like, well, you got to choose now.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it was just such an incredible gift. So, the other piece that I would like to mention is this. What I noticed when I made the choice, like when I really asked the question, what is this choice going to create? It was not the future that I know is possible. It wasn't very expansive for me. It wasn't very expansive for the being. And it certainly wasn't going to create the consciousness and the world that I know I'm here to create. And for some people, when they ask those questions, choosing to have a child might be exactly that. It might be the expansive choice. It might be the choice that creates the future they would like to have, whether they ever consider having a kid or not. But for me, in my case, I went, well, actually this doesn't create the future I would like to have. So rather than making the choice for the rightness or the wrongness, based on the judgments of this reality, I looked at what is my choice going to actually create. So I had been experiencing some push-pull energy and some stuff that really did not feel good at all. And when I looked and went, gosh, what is this really? What I noticed is that when I made the choice not to continue with the pregnancy, that I was doing separation and rejection. I was like, well, I can't get too close. I'm not going to really open myself up to receive. I'm going to go into rejection because that's what you do when you don't keep something. That's when you choose something you don't like to have, you reject it. And I went, wow, this is what's actually causing my pain.
Yeah.
This is what's creating the upset in the universe. And I went, wow, this isn't me. And I talked to the being and I said, hey, look, I am not choosing to separate from you and I will not reject you. And I'm so sorry that that's what I was trying to do. You have a week to live as much as possible and to enjoy this physical actualization as much as you can. And what was cool was the response from the being was, that's okay. There was absolutely no judgment. That's okay. But during this time, will you let me contribute to you? Will you let me heal your body from the inside? Because I can do it from here. Will you receive from me? And I was like in tears. It never occurred to me that that was even possible. And I went, wow, how many other people in the world have no idea that they could get pregnant, not to have a baby, but they could get pregnant because their consciousness, the universe, has your back, and every being who's choosing consciousness and creating greater consciousness wants to contribute to you. And that, just because you get pregnant, it could be that being is there to contribute to you. And maybe that's not the case every single time. But I just really wanted to have this conversation because I went, wow, it never occurred to me that this was even possible.
That's freaking amazing. Is what that is.
It is. And I went, wow, this isn't about life. This isn't about death. Well, it was really both. It was a combination of all of it, but it was about healing. It was about consciousness. It was about transformation. And in the end, it was a celebration of life. And it was a celebration of everything I'm choosing. And this being went, I choose to contribute to you. Here's the best way I know how. So
I had this around that, and curiosities around that is people who have chosen, say, abortion or have had like conscious miscarriages, like consciously had miscarriages, and then people who have had miscarriages sort of unconsciously. If those beings are still present and we haven't separated from them, and there is something going on in the body still, and those beings are still present, would the people who have this going on, would they be willing to ask those beings to still contribute to healing their body? Like, do they actually have to have the being go inside to contribute to that? Or, do you know what I'm saying?
Not necessarily. So what if it wasn't even about asking for contribution? What if you're already being contributed to? what if you could just ask the question, is there a contribution here that I have not received? Would you actually be willing to receive it? So, and for some people, they're like, what do you mean you're talking to the being? Like, how would I do that? Like, what are you talking about? You know, it can actually, you know, feel like you're having a conversation with yourself. But there is a sense of lightness and a sense of spaciousness that you have the conversation. You know, and you will get awarenesses within yourself, and it, you know, kind of sounds like it's in your own head, but you'll often get information that you don't expect. That's what always surprises me. So if you are someone, you know, where you've had a miscarriage, like, you know, what if there's nothing wrong with you? What if there isn't anything wrong with your body? What if you are in choice, but also that being is in choice? And would you also be willing to look at the contribution? This is for someone who's had a miscarriage and someone who's chosen to have an abortion. What if, you know, that being chose to come and be with you and have a little body inside of you for a short period of time because you also had an energy and a space and a consciousness and a whole slew of experiences that being was then also able to receive a contribution from you. So anything that maybe you've held back because of everything that came up for you in terms of, you know, if you've had a miscarriage, you know, the failure of your body, like whatever, all that stuff comes up. And also remember, what is true for you will feel lighter, and what isn't true, what is online is going to feel heavy. So in this realm, you've really got to use that tool because it's really based on awareness. Because people are going to ask, like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, the truth is lighter.
Yeah, and you know.
You do know. And what if you just know that you know? So, you know, anyone who might have anything, you know, stuck in their body, or they feel like, gosh, the baby's been hanging around, you know, what if you could ask, like, is there something I can contribute to you? And have the willingness to actually have a connection with that being and not have to separate from them, not have to reject, you know, the being. What if you could still receive that gift? What if you could still gift that gift? And what if it doesn't show up like anything you ever imagined? And what if you can just take an eraser and just erase everywhere that, you know, you've made yourself right, everywhere that you have made yourself wrong, and everywhere that you picked up in other people's universes, all of their points of view about the rightness and the wrongness of your faith, or of having a miscarriage, or any of it. What if we could really, you know, be curious and be in the question? You see, when we get out of the rightness and the wrongness of all of this, we step into a possibility. And to me, that is a celebration of living. When we step into possibility and we go, gosh, what's right about this? What's going on here that I never would have imagined? What is possible I have never considered before? Even with something like miscarriage and something like abortion, where in this reality, it says, no, no, no. We have a fixed set of rules about the rightness and the wrongness of these things, and you must adhere to this. So what I would like to ask is, what if you don't? What if you don't have to adhere to that? And anywhere that you have any of it locked in your body, will you please just let it dissipate and just go into the earth? And allow the earth to be a contribution to your body too. What if there is just so much more going on here than you ever imagined? What if there's more magic and more beauty and more possibility in the world than you ever imagined, even with the stuff that we have decided is a wrong thing or a bad thing?
I think that's amazing. I'm just like listening to you going, wow. One thing that comes up for me, Melanie, is the question of what role does the father play and what's his choice in all of it?
Yeah, that is a great question. So, I mean, you know, I don't actually have an answer.
Cool. Neither do I, but I'm like wondering, like, so I asked my daughter a little while ago if her father's been hospitalized for quite a while, and we're not really haven't been a lot in contact with him by choice. and she has no real desire to see him. I give her choice, and I always ask her, like, if would you like to see your dad? Would, that be fun for you? And it's generally no. Actually, she's never said yes. So I asked her one day about choosing your mother, choosing your parents. And I asked her, so did you choose me, like, for anything in particular? And she's like, well, I don't know, but I chose you. I'm like, okay, cool. So
she's
did
like,
you
you
choose
both had some amazing genetic material. This is the body I wanted.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. And I was like, so did you choose your dad? And her response to me was, I could have chosen anybody for my dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, the guy who's like your stepdad right now isn't physiologically able to have children. So did you pick somebody else to get the sperm so that he could be your dad? And she's like, yeah, I might have. Well, that's all interesting.
It is interesting. And, when I was pregnant, I did ask the being about the father, like, and it was really wanting to live with him. And I was like, honey, I am not the one. I am not the one to give that to you, but I'm sure you can choose that in the future. So it wasn't just for me. These beings they're conscious. They're aware. They're not babies. They are infinite beings.
Yeah.
They, start off with these little bodies, but they're infinite beings. So everywhere everyone has the perception that they're these like little tribes, and like, oh, it's a baby spirit. It's a baby being. It's like there are no baby beings. There are infinite beings, just like you are, just like I am, just like every other being, on the planet. And we are infinite, and they've been around for millions of years, and they will continue to be around for millions of years. And I think, that picture we have in our head of these little baby beings, it just adds to the pot of judgment.
Yes, it does.
And again, don't believe anything that I'm saying. I'm not saying everything I'm saying is going to be true for you. Notice what is light and notice what is heavy. Don't believe me. Ask these questions yourself. But really, I want you to just, shine the light into the subject and go, hey, you actually can ask questions about this. And
you can have conversations with the beings. Like the beings know, and you can communicate with them. And if you think you can't, why not just have playing with it? Like you could, like the way I have a conversation with my daughter is no different than the way I have a conversation with a being without a body. Yeah. It's the same to me. So just that one is verbal and one's. And sometimes with my daughter, it's nonverbal as well. And I get like, oh, well, there's some energy there that's not quite, but she has some information. So I like that the being that chose you and that father is more like, hey, no, I'm actually more about the father. And, the being that chose me, Ziva, as the mother was like, well, I'm choosing you as my mother, full-time parent, and like whoever else. Like, what if it isn't that those two parents are kismet fate and they have to be together forever? Like, how often does that actually show up in work? So.
Oh, my goodness. And notice, again, there are so many points of view there.
Yeah.
And, a really cool thing about this is, when and if, like, you say you've already had an experience or you had a miscarriage or you have a choice, gosh, am I going to, choose to, stay pregnant or choose to not be pregnant anymore? I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm all, where was I going with that? That's really funny.
I like it, but we were you were saying about whether you're going to choose to be pregnant or not, or embodiment or not, or like we have. So we just ultimately it's choice.
Well, it's ultimately choice, and it's also this incredible, like, bouquet of judgments, points of views, belief systems, like all of it. For me, I really had to confront all of these belief systems that I didn't actually know I had. I was like, oh my God, this is actually still part of my consciousness? Like, whoa, I had no idea that I was actually still functioning from this set of beliefs. And it brought all of this awareness. I went, gosh, okay, that actually isn't true for me. And I was able to, to look at all of these points of views that were just really just points of views. And judgments and conclusions and computations and things I picked up from my family and society and everywhere else. So, those of you who have experienced this, also, I would really love for you to take a moment and see if it fits for you and acknowledge the courage that it actually takes, right, to choose to even step into getting pregnant in the first place. Because, again, we are infinite beings also, and there's nothing that we create that we haven't chosen on some level. Right? It's not like we consciously go, I think I'm going to get pregnant so that I can get this, this, and this. It's like, hey, universe, I'd like to receive this. I'd like greater awareness, and I'd like this part of my body to heal, and I'd like greater embodiment, and I'd like to let go of all these limiting beliefs. And then, boop, like, there you are pregnant. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Who knew that was the energy that would bring that, right?
Oh, no. And for me, it just was a wealth of possibilities and a wealth of transformation and healing. And it was just such a gift. Because without, that experience is, the mirror wouldn't necessarily have gotten held up in that way. And it happened very quickly. It was really like pulling off a Band-Aid. It didn't take years and years. It was like, cool, in 2 weeks, your entire life is going to be completely different. Here you go. And I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty brilliant.
And that is, and it's pretty amazing that being was like, I'll facilitate that for you, sure. Like, that is so cool.
Absolutely. It is really cool. So I just to, invite everyone who's listening to really acknowledge yourself, and the courage you had to choose it. And it's never too late. What awareness can you actually have right now, and what can you receive?
And we have about 2 minutes to end, so I'd like to give you till the end of the show to let people know about the amazing telecall that you have coming up. For anybody who would like more of this, more clearing to come up, more awareness to come up, more just hanging out with Melanie too. Please tell them about it.
I will. Thank you so much. So, I've chosen to go ahead and put this conversation out into the world. So I have a 3-week telecall that's coming up. It's clearing the issues and embracing the gifts of abortion and miscarriage. So we're going to talk about some of the things that we talked about on the show today, but we're going to just take it to a much deeper level. Like you said earlier in the show, I'm an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator. So I'm going to be using some of the brilliant and potent and wacky tools of Access Consciousness to go in and really excavate and really clear out those thoughts, feelings, emotions, decisions, conclusions, all that stuff that we've picked up or bought and we've, been carrying around with us. We're going to, clear all the issues as much as you're willing to let go of. We're going to do the clearing, and we're going to do exercises, and, it'll be a little different than this because you'll be able to ask all of your questions, either live on the show, or you can email me before the show, and then I'll address your questions. And then, some more really cool processes about, talking to the being. Even if it was 10 years ago, even if it was 5 years ago, even if it's something you're currently experiencing right now, it is actually never too late, and in consciousness, anything is possible. And then more processes for really receiving those gifts, receiving the transformation, and really, receiving the healing that's possible. So you can, contact me through my website or find me on Facebook for more information.
So it's Melanie Clampett on Facebook, and then if you just message her, she can add you to the event, so you're part of that. I want to thank you so much for being on this show today, for asking me to have this show, because it's a conversation I've really wanted to have for quite a while. So I'm really grateful for you, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on a2zen.fm. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.